had a really fun question about how to divide the word suppose. And what ended up happening was it sent me down, of course, a morphology rabbit hole. So here I'm going to show you both. I'm going to show you how to divide this word by syllable, and then I'm going to go into the morphology a little bit. So the first thing you would do is take a look at the vowels, and U and O are the vowels that represent a sound, and this O is just connected to the E. So we don't count the E in terms of syllable division because the E doesn't make a sound, so it doesn't, there's no syllable that's wrapped around it. It's part of the syllable that has the O. So the next step would be to look at the consonants between the two vowels, and we have two consonants. So this one's pretty consistent that you split between the consonants. What happens here is this is a closed consonant because that P is closing in that U, making that U short. And then this, of course, is a silent E syllable, so we have suppose. Now, another just quick way is I always tell my students, when you have a double, it's so nice because when you have a double, you just know that that vowel is going to be short. So you usually end up splitting there. So that's kind of a, in terms of syllable division, this one's a pretty easy one to divide. But then I started getting to like, wait a minute, there's also impose and expose. So then I started thinking about it in terms of morphology. Now, for morphology, it's the same way. It is prefix sup, which is an assimilated prefix, I think of sub, plus the root P-O-S-E. So I went into this one because I was like, I wonder how many words, and wow, did I find a lot. So let's take a look at this word or that root and see other words that are related. Okay, so it turns out the root means to put, place, or set. I don't know if this is how you're supposed to write it, but sometimes it has the E and sometimes it doesn't, so I just do it like that. So if you think about the meaning of the root and then the meaning of the word suppose, when you're like supposing something, you're putting your confidence into something that you think is true, even if you're not certain about it. So that's where like the put comes in. So we have suppose. And now before I go any further, after a bunch of searching, look at all the words that fit with this. A lot, right? So what I end up doing is I can go backward from a word. So I've got to the point where I can look at a word and not every time, but I can kind of see the different morphemes in the word. So it's kind of fun. So suppose is way down there, but then if you look, let's take a look at, let's do expose. So it is prefix, EX, X. And when you expose, you're like putting something out, right? For anybody to see. So expose. And then when I look at the word exposure, that one's a pretty self-explanatory. It's just URE, which is a suffix I've seen before, exposure. Now with expose, this is an example of like the E is there in expose, but then you don't have that E, you drop that E when you add the URE. And that's just that regular suffix rule of dropping the E before a vowel suffix. So we have exposure. This next one's a little bit tricky. There's exposition. So I've seen this a couple times before, even though ITE is not like a suffix that, you know, I don't like off the top of my head know the meaning of it and all that, but I've seen ishin a lot. So I figured out that it is this and then plus ION, dropping the E. So that's exposition. We can do, oops, sorry, got out of the line there. Compose, and then we have the same thing. Look, composure, composition. So that's kind of fun. And then just composite is a word, and composer. So that's kind of fun. We can also depose, and you can then deposit, although I guess you wouldn't have that either, so that's kind of tricky. You can have, let's see, is that all of them? Yes, all of it for that one. Oh, I thought of one more thing. You can also decompose. This D is different than this D. This one right here, the way a word matrix works is that you go from left to right. So this would just be depose or deposit, whereas this one goes with the com, which I desperately need to move over. Decomposition. or decomposed. Both of them work. We also have, let's see, you can dispose of something, and you can have a garbage disposal, and something can be disposable. And you can also have a really sunny or not so sunny disposition. So see, we keep using those again, which is so fun. We wouldn't want to impose and then be an imposition. Sometimes you just need to oppose what someone is saying, and then that means you sometimes then have the opposite opinion. And they might be your how do I say that? Opposition. I can't think off the top of my head how to use that in a sentence, but you probably can. Okay, then we have preposition. We have propose, proposal, proposition, purpose, and then transpose. And then just going back to this, we also have just the regular word position. That's where position comes from. Or positive. So now I need to make this a scoosh smaller because I need to go positive. Like that. Kind of fun, huh? So I've done all the ones with pause, and then when I was looking, I found that, I don't know what you call it when they like mean the same thing and they have the same Proto-Indo-European like ancestor root, but whatever that's called, it's P-O-N, and some words would be component, and then we have exponent, opponent, proponent, and then postpone. Whew, isn't that amazing? So, sorry for the long video, but I wanted to take you on kind of my journey of how I create this matrix just based on words that have the same root. You'll see that happens a lot where you notice, especially like I looked up here, there's so many words that did the same, like boop, 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 and made words like that. So fun. Thank you so much for the question. I know your question was about syllable division, but it kind of led me on a fun adventure. So keep the questions coming.